Alright, y'all, so today I want to make a very quick video to give you my thoughts on a recent comic book I read, which was called Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong. This was a mini-series that ran from 2023 to 2024. It was published by DC and basically was a big crossover between DC Comics and the Monsterverse. Now, the Monsterverse, if you don't know what that is, consists of all of the American-made live-action Godzilla films, excluding the 1998 movie and some of the others, starting with Godzilla 2014 and currently ongoing at the time I'm making this video with Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. Now, this tie-in comic book series was published, I'm guessing, to support the new movie that came out back in 2024. And I was kind of just curious based on the premise alone. I mean, DC characters mixed in with Godzilla. Now, as far as I remember, I think this is not the first time Godzilla has crossed over with comic books. I know that there's been plenty of Godzilla comics over the years. Plus, I know that Marvel did cross over with Godzilla way back in the day, but that's besides the point. What is this comic book series? It's basically, like the title suggests, it's a big crossover with Godzilla and a lot of the Monsterverse titans in this thing. And it revolves around basically a storyline involving the Toyman and this thing called the Dreamstone, and this whole thing that basically Titans are brought over into this DC universe, and all the heroes have to react accordingly to come up with a plan to stop them, while at the same time, being heroes and saving as many people as they possibly can, and eventually stopping the threat. Ultimately, kind of concluding in a big, massive, multi-way kaiju battle that involves Lex Luthor controlling a version of Mechagodzilla, Godzilla arriving on the scene. There's also a really big mutated version, I believe, of the Skullcrawler, the creatures from Kong Skull Island. Kong is in the battle alongside other titans and superheroes. And it's just a big, epic brawl that is one of the best things I've ever read in comics. Now, my personal opinion, I thought this was a pretty fun comic book series. It only runs for 7 issues, but I think for the most part, it's a really solid series, and it does exactly what it set out to do. Poses a lot of very interesting questions. We even get the kind of ultimate question, what if Godzilla fights Superman? That kind of gets answered in this comic book. And I'm not going to, I guess I'm already saying something about spoilers, but Godzilla kind of wins over Superman in this comic, basically. I mean, Superman doesn't die, but he definitely gets beaten. So I'm going to definitely say after reading this comic, Godzilla probably beats Superman. That being said, I mean, this was a really fun comic. I think the artwork was fantastic, the dialogue is pretty solid, and the story itself I felt was very intriguing. And there's a lot of things that DC characters, I just naturally thought, yeah, that absolutely makes sense for that respective character to do. Like the fact that Lex Luthor, using files from Monarch, would create a version of Mechagodzilla. That's totally a Lex Luthor thing to do. Godzilla himself being petty and fighting Superman in his own view, because Superman's basically, Godzilla's whole thing is that he wants to be the balance. He wants to balance nature. That he's the king, he's got to balance anything that's going to upset the order. And he fights Superman initially in the beginning of this comic because Superman is such a strong superhero. He get upset to him the balance of nature. And I really like that explanation given. And I already mentioned this, but the last whole, finale of this comic is amazing. And there's so many really great moments and action scenes. Like another personal favorite is the part where with Aquaman, right? He unleashes the Kraken. And the Kraken fights Godzilla in this comic, which is amazing. It's one of those great what-ifs kind of answered in this comic. It's really cool. And I could go on, but the artwork's fantastic. There's so many great, standout moments. Also, I wanted to mention Kong gets a lantern. He becomes a Green Lantern initially in this thing, which is insane. I can't believe I'm saying those words. King Kong becomes a Green Lantern. But yep, that does happen in this comic, and it's kind of crazy. And yeah, I mean, I think the writing was pretty solid in general. It just is a very fun comic. I thought that the order of events and how the heroes reacted was really fun. I thought all the monsters from the Monsterverse here that crossed over all acted accordingly, and they were big, they were imposing. They were threatening. It just made sense, and I think I think it was really well done in this comic. I think though this comic's not perfect, I think that some parts of it I think definitely needed to be fixed. Like personally, I feel like it rushes to a conclusion way too quickly. Because like after the big epic battle that I already mentioned, Superman kind of gets the Dream Stone, and then everything just kind of come back to normal, and it's just kind of like, whoa, what happened to the other characters? What happened to this element? It's very much kind of like it wraps up way too quickly. And I feel like this comic book miniseries needed another issue to at least flesh out the ending and not be rushing to a conclusion. And there's also certain characters that kind of sit around and do nothing, like the League of Doom are kind of introduced in the beginning and have a form in the story and the plot, but then they end up doing nothing by the end of the comic. So I'm not sure if they're going to be saved for another sequel, but I was a bit shocked that there are some elements that were kind of unused. I think it also rushes to an ending too quickly. But I think overall, Godzilla versus Kong versus the Justice League was really well done. It was a fun comic. There's kind of a element of disbelief, and I'm not analyzing this thing like it's the Dark Knight Returns or something. But, it's a really fun and good comic. I would highly recommend. I mean, if you want to know what Godzilla does in a world of superheroes in the DC universe, I would highly recommend y'all picking up this comic. So yeah, that's my kind of quick thoughts on this comic. Definitely worth a read if you're interested in these kind of topics already. And yeah, hopefully you all have a good day, and peace, y'all.